Welcome back, YouTube, to the GoatCast podcast. I'm your host, Big Nige, and welcome back to another segment of Basketball with Big Nige. Today, I got a special treat for y'all. I will be doing the Southwest Division for the preseason rankings for the NBA. Like CW has said in the previous video, we got 5 weeks until the NBA is back. So, to bridge that gap, me and CW are going to do our own little things and talk about the preseason and kind of what we think of each team in these divisions. This isn't going to be super high depth, not a whole lot of analysis, just a little bit of breakdown. I'm going to give you my thoughts. But as always, before we start the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And let's get into today's topic. So I'll be doing the Southwest Division. And to start, I'm going to go ahead and start with the San Antonio Spurs. Now, San Antonio, their biggest additions this year was Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul. Now, I have them at number 5 because as well as Chris Paul will be for Wemby's development, getting him the ball where he needs, setting the tone a little bit earlier, you can still only play him in spot minutes. He's up there in age, and this team is really going to go as far as Wemby can take them. The only problem is Wemby by himself in a loaded Western Conference isn't going to be enough to get them to the next level. They're going to need more development. They're going to need more pieces. They're going to need something alongside Victor Wembanyama. I do like Harrison Barnes, and I think him as, a comfortable 3, take away a little bit of Keldon Johnson's kind of ball hoggish play. He likes to shot create. He likes to put the ball in his hands, and he likes to shoot a lot. He's not that good of a shooter. So bringing in Harrison Barnes can definitely do some things, and they can win a few more games. I don't see playoff in this team's immediate future. Could I see play in? Absolutely. But they're number 5 on my list. Number 4, I got the Houston Rockets. They virtually have the same roster as last year. They got Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Jabari Smith Jr., and Sengun. Not a lot of new faces. They're kind of just running it back. They're continuing to get the reps up, continuing to build continuity on the roster. They've had a really long playoff drought. Coming at the number 4 spot, I don't see them making the playoffs. I think, again, play-in is solid. I think Houston and San Antonio will be pretty neck and neck in terms of the regular season. I think Houston is a better team, but I think they pale in comparison to the teams that we have coming up. I think they're a fun team to watch, and I think the next step for Houston would be getting Jalen Green to be more consistent, show what he's kind of showed toward the end of last season and other seasons where he kind of has these spurts where he can give you, about 23 to 25 a night on solid efficiency, and he can get scorching hot. I like to see Sengun take the next step in his development, be a little bit better on the defensive end. He's already a pretty good passer, solid rebounder. He can score, do a little bit of everything. That's why he's like Jokic-esque. So I'd like to see him make those improvements. Outside of that, you got a solid piece in Dylan Brooks. Might not agree with everything and all his antics, but he is a solid antagonizer on that team. So I look for them to be at the 4 spot in the Southwest Division. And in terms of the playoffs, that will be determined. Coming in at number 3, I got the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, they finished number 2 in the Southwest Division last year, and that was behind the backs of decent play from McCollum, Ingram, Zion, the works. They made a few additions this year, getting Javonte Green, who's a pretty solid pickup. DeJounte Murray was the biggest name, obviously. I don't really like his fit on this team, if I'm going to be quite honest with you guys. I think him and Ingram are very ball-dominant players. I think you put too many ball-dominant players alongside of Zion Williamson, who needs the ball in his hands to be effective. That doesn't really spell for a recipe for success. I definitely think that they should move off of Ingram and try, please, for the love of God, get a stretch 5. It's time. There's no more need for, bigs alongside Zion to be, in the paint. They got rid of Valanciunas, who was a solid big for them, wasn't a floor spacer to the degree that they need to unlock Zion's true potential. He gets downhill, he can finish with the best of them. Big, athletic, strong dude. He needs the ball in his hands, and they need to honestly approach Zion's development like they did with Giannis. They need to surround him with shooters, especially at the center position, like they did for Giannis with Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis. Um, I think doing something like that could propel this Pelicans team. And of course, another question mark is Ozempic Zion. What is he going to look like? Is he finally going to be consistently on the floor I think he was on his second season in the NBA where he played, I think about 60, 70 games, something like that. That was like the best version of Zion we've seen, but he was out of shape. This Zion, Ozempic Zion, he looks like he's in shape. We will have to see what that looks like throughout the course of this season. But I know that he has these contract stipulations that he can't weigh a certain amount. He can't miss a certain amount of games. So he's taking his health seriously from what you've seen on social media. Will that correlate to more wins? That really depends on the roster configuration, them getting a stretch five, and things of that nature. But I think DeJounte Murray, they'll win some more games, but I think it's a big cloud over them with the whole Brandon Ingram situation. So I think by trade deadline, they'll make some moves and maybe get this roster in the right direction. So they're at my number 3 spot. Number 2, I got the Memphis Grizzlies. They were pretty much the laughingstock of the NBA last season. And that was in large part due to injuries. They were kind of throwing out some wild lineups. And the main and most important reason, no Ja Morant. You take one of the best point guards in today's game, you sit him out and leave that roster, spearheaded by, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., a little bit of Marcus Smart here and there, but he was primarily hurt last season as well. So you throw that combination together and some poor lineup configurations, and you don't get a recipe for success. You bring Ja Morant back, you got Ja Morant with a chip on his shoulder. People are talking about Anthony Edwards like he's the next big thing and just completely have forgotten the greatness of Ja Morant. So I look for him to be a sleeper in the MVP discussion and do some things for this Grizzlies roster. Desmond Bane will significantly excel from not having the primary defender on him like he's had without Ja Morant being on the floor. He excels as the number 2 option. He's great off the ball, great shooter, could put the ball on the floor, do some things for you on both ends at times. But he's definitely like Ja Morant's Klay Thompson-esque guy. And they brought back Luke Kennard, cool, nice shooter. Didn't make a whole lot of moves. I know they drafted big man Zach Edey. Got to see what that looks like with Ja Morant in the pick and roll. Ja Morant loves to get downhill, not the strongest shooter. And I know Zach Edey, I don't see him becoming a stretch 5 anytime soon. So we'll have to see what that looks like. But I have them over New Orleans because I do believe that the Brandon Ingram situation, they're going to lose some games because the team is going to have a kind of a cloud over their shoulder. And they also need to address the whole stretch 5 incident. So I have them at number 2. I think Memphis will play hard. I think Ja Morant will guide this team back into like the 50-ish win category, like we're accustomed to seeing this team. And I wouldn't sleep on Memphis. They are a force to be reckoned with, and they're going to remind the league this year that Ja Morant is special. So finally, coming in at my number 1 spot for the Southwest Division, of course, the Dallas Mavericks. They re-signed Markieff Morris, Brandon Williams, cool. They added Klay Thompson, one of the biggest, additions this offseason. He's the ultimate, I would say 3-and-D guy, but he doesn't play that much defense anymore. Respectable in that end, no slouch, of course, but not the Klay Thompson that we're accustomed to seeing on both ends. But he's still one of the best shooters to ever play this game. And at this stage in his career, he can still play off the ball and still, maneuver around screens and come off pin downs, things of that nature. But he's still a very good catch and shoot 3-point shooter. Now, his shot selection last year, coupled with some, defensive woes, it made him look really bad for Golden State. I look for him in a reserve role with this Dallas Mavericks roster alongside Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic. Those kinds of players can get him better looks, and he won't have the attention on him like he did in Golden State. They also added Najee Marshall, who is basically my thoughts a replacement for Derrick Jones Jr., who they lost to the Clippers. Um, Both guys similar in stature. Najee Marshall is a better shooter, but Derrick Jones Jr. is a better, I'd say he's a better defender and a better athlete. So I guess they're going more an offensive approach this offseason. Like I said, they lost Josh Green, they lost Tim Hardaway Jr. Um, Two guys who, Josh Green was okay. They didn't really play a ton in the playoffs. He was kind of an effort guy who would come in and spot minutes, hit some shots, play his tail off, but wasn't that impactful. So bringing in a guy like Najee Marshall and Klay Thompson to replace Tim Hardaway Jr. and Josh Green, who wasn't getting that much run anyway, I think it's a win-win. We'll have to see what they do with Klay's minutes. Are they going to start Klay? Are they going to come? Is he going to come off the bench? Is Najee Marshall going to start? I don't see Spencer Dinwiddie and Quentin Grimes doing too much to be completely honest with you. And the biggest question mark, honestly, is Luka's defense. Luka is easily a top 3 player in today's game. MVP caliber, no doubt. Just coming off of averaging like 33.6 points per game last season, damn near triple-double. So we know he's great. Defensively is the biggest challenge for him. If he's going to consistently get hunted in the playoffs in a loaded Western Conference, albeit I understand that the Dallas is the runaway favorites for the Southwest Division. That's not a question. If we're talking about contending status, I believe this team is a contender, but it's also on the back of Luka Doncic. All the stamina issues of him carrying the load for 3.5 quarters, and then he's kind of doesn't quite have it in the fourth because he's been so ball dominant. We'll have to see what they do to kind of switch that up. But my main problem with him is the defense. So if he can look in the mirror and finally address that, just be better. You don't have to be Kawhi Leonard. You don't have to be Michael Jordan on that end. You just got to be better. You got to show consistent effort. You got to be engaged. You can't keep playing these mind games with the referees. You have to be engaged for 48 plus minutes of basketball if you are going to take this team to not only get to the finals, but actually overcome a team like the Boston Celtics. So those are my 5 picks for the Southwest Division. Like I said, Dallas, Memphis, New Orleans, Houston, and San Antonio. Let me know if you guys agree with me. Let me know if you guys like this kind of casual format that I have with basketball with Big Nige. But like CW said, 5 weeks until the NBA season. So I'm ready. I know y'all are ready. So stay locked in with us, and we'll be back with some good content for y'all. Make sure you check out CW's video on I think it's the Southeast Division. A whole lot of butt cheek teams on the Eastern Conference. So it's only like a little 6-minute video. Y'all go check that out. Run up those numbers for us. We really appreciate the support. And until next time, Big Nige is out.